Olá, meu nome é Cássio, sou jornalista do Cointelegraph e atuo nesse setor de criptomoedas aí já faz um bom tempo. Também sou pai da Joana, uma menina de 5 anos que tem um sorriso maravilhoso e que tem uma alteração genética e paralisia cerebral. A gente está montando uma campanha para ajudar a Joana para fazer um tratamento para a paralisia cerebral na Rússia. Então a gente conta com o apoio de vocês e desde já queria agradecer a Exame por essa oportunidade e por esse evento maravilhoso. Valeu, pessoal, fica com os maiores nomes aí do universo de criptomoedas aí agora nesse evento. Valeu.
Hi, my name is Anish Mohammed. I'm a principal architect of Boson Protocol, co-founder and CTO of Panther Protocol. I'm going to talk a bit about DeFi. I will start with a very high-level introduction, kind of describe the key differences between traditional fintech and DeFi, then walk through what has actually happened in the DeFi space in the last year or so, look at some new developments like NFTs and Metaverse, and then possibly look at 3 or 4 protocols in a bit more depth, and I will summarize towards the end, okay? So what's the real difference between fintech and DeFi? The real difference that I would say in one single line would be, in fintech, you have a legal contract that actually assures you that you would be backed up if something goes wrong. Let me explain what this means. Imagine you go to a bank and you withdraw some money. There's a contract, and the financial regulatory authority in that country assures you that whatever money you put in the bank will be given back to you. So it is kind of based on a bunch of bureaucracy that exists. But if you think of DeFi, what happens is like it's a software that takes care of all of it. There might be a very tiny amount of bureaucracy. That is mostly the kind of KYC, AML kind of processes. And not all DeFi protocols even require that. So it is very much like you have a one-to-one interaction with anybody else who's actually on the protocol. And there is no intermediaries, and there is no bureaucracy, and there is no legal framework to back it up. So if I were to actually break this up in layers, so this is how I would describe it. I typically describe it in like 3, but I have a slide which actually describes this in 4. So the lowermost layer is a layer where the normal Ethereums of the world or the BTCs of the world in that sense exist. And then on top, you actually have the financial and stability services. And then on top of it, you typically have the so-called consumer services. So the thing you need to recognize is like most protocols that are DeFi would require a decentralized blockchain protocol to be as the underlying substrate. And mostly it would require to have some capability to do smart contracts. Okay, and then you actually have this layer on top that actually could do all the things you want to do. So this could include insurance, it could include stable coins, this could include decentralized exchanges, relays, and aggregators. Then the slightly more sophisticated things, derivatives, synthetics, and then you also have lending and saving and some liquidity providers and market making. So I will kind of touch upon each of them like a very tiny bit, but I just wanted to tell you what it was. And then if you look at the consumer layer, this is where the user normally interacts with the protocol, right? This is like the browsers of the world. Essentially what that means is if you have a browser, you will typically have MetaMask in it. And there could be other ones that are there. So effectively, the wallets are the tools or the interfaces that allow you as a user to interact with the ecosystem, okay? And this sits on this consumer layer. And there is all this other legacy layer. Legacy layers are the layers that actually allows you to talk from the decentralized world to the centralized world. So the centralized world are the banks, the, how could I say, the legal frameworks, everything that you really see in a normal fintech space. Okay. So typically speaking, the things that I would say in DeFi would include stablecoins, because as you probably recognize already, in a crypto world, there's a lot of volatility. So imagine I were to go buy a cup of tea, and I go to the shop, I order tea, and I ask the person how much the cost of the tea is. Say they go $2. The kind of volatility we actually have in the crypto market, it might end up me having to pay $3 by the time I get the tea. The person just makes tea. By the time I get it, it'll be $3. That's massive volatility. So you need to actually reduce this. So you have something like a stable coin. And I'll touch upon that briefly later. Then you have lending and saving. So if you have a lot of crypto, what do you do with it? You need to get some yield out of it. So you allow other people to lend it from you, right? And then there's other problem that you have. If you have an exchange, you need to have market making. Because if you want to sell something, someone needs to buy. Not always all the times that the buyer and the seller are on the same price. So you need to have the mechanism to do that. Then there is, right? And I'm pretty sure everybody has heard about derivatives and synthetics. So it's the same. It's no difference between what exists in the traditional financial markets and in a DeFi space. The key player in this and the danger in many ways, what I would say are the DEXs or decentralized exchanges. One of the most interesting decentralized exchanges, I think, that has really changed the scenario or the scene is Uniswap, right? And I will kind of touch upon that briefly. But in general, decentralized exchanges are exchanges where you don't actually need to hand over your assets to somebody and they do the custody and then they give you money back. So imagine I wanted to buy some BTC. Imagine I go to Bitfinex. So if I go to Bitfinex, what I need to do is I need to set up an account, transfer some money from my account, from my bank into their account. And then what they would do is they would actually give me some BTC into the wallet in my Bitfinex account, right? So they hold all these things. At some point in time, they hold both the money and the crypto, right? Whereas in a decentralized finance, this doesn't happen. In a way, you can almost think of it like an atomic swap. So I give the money. I mean, typically speaking, I can't give money. It has to be one crypto. So you give one crypto, you get one crypto back. I mean, that happens continuously. And there is no intermediary that actually holds things and does anything of that sort, okay? Then there's aggregators, which is kind of, layers are layers. They relay transaction aggregators which bunch things together. Then there is decentralized exchanges. Decentralized insurance. What does decentralized insurance do? It provides you insurance, very trivial, right? So Nexus Mutual will be a good example of this. What it does is when you want to actually get some insurance, you can go to this folks and they will provide you insurance for a smart contract. All the rest of the stuff that's in there is interesting. So oracles are things that will allow you as a smart contract to understand what's going on in the real world. Privacy is something super important. The reason I say that is imagine that every transaction you do is actually written on a postcard and sent through and everybody has the ability to see. That's what happens in, on a blockchain and in DeFi. And obviously interoperability, you need to be able to move between different protocols. Now, let me give you some context. I'm going to do this a bit more faster. So more than a year ago, almost 10 months ago, I gave a similar talk and I had a bunch of slides. And I kind of said this to people that were listening to me, watch the space. And at that point in time, the total value that was actually locked in all the DeFi protocols at total, okay, it was less than $1 billion, okay? And Maker was 50%. So the total value that was there at that point in time was 973.5 million, okay? And this is important. I'm going to show you the next slide. So yes, today morning, okay, I looked at how much it was. 56.98. That's 56 times the value we had almost 10 months ago. And also, that's more interesting is the fact that the dominance of Maker has changed. Maker is only 16%. And we have Compound, Uniswap, Aave, and other people that are there. And I kind of mentioned Uniswap to you, is one of the protocols that actually allows people to exchange, and it's become a major player. And Maker still is a major player, and Maker has 9 bill total volume locked, and so is Compound. I probably will talk about a Compound a bit later in the slides. Okay, this is overall. Let's look about lending, right? So going back 10 months again, right? Lending was one of the biggest chunks in DeFi at that point in time. Remember, it was like 900 something odd, right? Out of that, 700 plus million was actually lending, and it was again Maker, Compound, and Aave, and those kind of people, right? And literally look at the dominance of Maker. It was like 68%, and look what has happened, right? There has been a significant multiplier effect, right? So somewhere around kind of a 50%, 50 times increase in total volume has happened. The dominance of Maker has come down, and there's been a very sharp increase that's happening. So what does this really mean? So what does it really mean is, like, if you were to look at DeFi over the last 10 months, the DeFi space has exploded like at least 50 times, right? Or 56 times to be more precise. And each of the different segments of this space, whether it's DEXs, its derivatives, or payments, or assets, they have all seen significant increase. So let me show you DEXs in June 2010. Don't be shocked, okay? DEXs is one of the categories where there is an incredible amount of growth. I will explain why. So Uniswap had a 50% dominance in among DEXs at the point, and the total volume lock was 66 mil. Okay, now watch this. 20 billion. Okay, 20 billion from a 66 million to 20 billion. Right? How many times of a multiplier that is? Right? And this is what I say. One of the real drivers of DeFi is definitely DEXs. DEXs really drove this. DEXs allows people to actually come in and out and swap one asset for another. And there is no intermediaries. And it's kind of finds the best price for you in the market. Okay? And this really drove it. And now if you were to think about assets, again, the same story continues. It's like assets was very tiny, 58 mil. And WBTC, which is like wrap BTC, has the highest dominance in that sense. And, if you look at what has happened now, it's almost 3 billion, right? And literally, if you look at WBTC is not there in the top 5. So Vesper, Pachitao, RenVM, and Harvest Finance, Keep Network, and all those people came in. And they have all taken up the slots, right? So that's been a real shift in assets as well. So when DeFi really started out, it was wrap BTC that really did all of this. But if you look carefully, a lot of this protocol, say for example RenVM, it still has BTC under the cover, but it has evolved significantly. It allows more flexibility for users to use it and gain yield. So here you go. Again, derivatives, right? I know this kind of sounds a bit awkward. Nexus Mutual was considered a derivative. In theory, that's a derivative, but in practice, it's an insurance. Nexus actually provides you insurance for smart contracts, okay? So in June, it was 4 mil, right? 4 mil, number 4, right? And the total allocation, synthetics was 94% allocation total. And if you look now, it's 2.6 billion is the total amount of derivatives. And if you look at synthetics, it still has 74%. It is close to 2 billion. And remember, Nexus Mutual, it only had 4. Now it's 384. Imagine 400. That's 100 times increase. In 10 months, you had 100 times increase, right? And this is what we need to understand. Certain asset classes have multiplied to 50 to 100 times, right? So there's so much volume that's happening. And let's look at payments as such. Payments was ridiculously small. And Lightning actually had 99% dominance, and it was only 9 million. Okay, look now. There you go, 2.3 billion. Out of that, Flexer now has a 53% dominance, and they are worth like a 1.23. Very different. If you look at it, you go, wow, how much change has happened in the last 10 months. And the thing you need to understand is this is not the only thing that happened, right? There's been a very, very new entrant that entered the space and really changed the way things are. So these are the non-fungible tokens, okay? The ERC 721s and 1155s. So I am pretty sure you've heard about CryptoPunk, Super Rare, and other things. So, if you look at the total amount of assets that are there, CryptoPunks literally have like a quarter billion, okay? Quarter billion assets locked in. This only entered the space. NFTs has been around for a while, but it only really entered the space in the last, I would say, 7 or 8 months in that sense. I would even go as far as to say this is like in October, November. That's when really took off. And now it has really peaked, okay? The key players in this space is non-origin. So you can actually go there and you can see all the different art, assets that are being listed there, and you can buy them, and they will, if you create an art, you as the creator of the art will get a fraction of the value that the asset has. And this is the whole, interest and attraction towards, the people who actually create digital art, right? And even bigger one is OpenSea. And OpenSea had gotten a significant amount of money from most recently A16Z. So that should clearly indicate to you that OpenSea is going to be one of the big players in the space. And then OpenSea has been around for a long while, right? And then this space attracting so many players and so many big names as well. So one of the biggest sales was an art by an artist who's an unknown, relatively unknown artist who actually sold this art for like 67 mil in an auction. But more interestingly, there are other people that are actually selling their art in that sense. It could be music. In this instance, there's Grimes. She actually sold her song for 6 million. So what an NFT means is it could be anything. It could be a picture, it could be an art, it could be a song, it could be a right to whatever, right? And you could actually offer this to somebody, and somebody could actually pay you for that, okay? And one other thing that has actually happened, even more interesting, is the existence of metaverse, right? I nicked it off one of my colleagues in Boston who was actually showing us all of this. So this is Decentraland, okay? And I will talk about Decentraland a bit somewhere. But the thing here is like you go into a virtual space, and each of the different places in here is represented by an NFT token, and you can interact with them. You can buy things, people. The hat you wear, the shoes you wear, the clothes you wear, these are all NFTs. You can buy them and you can wear them, right? And this is kind of the trend that's happening in the NFT space, metaverses, right? Completely digital existence in that sense. Now, this is kind of not really relevant, but I thought I should show you just so that you get an idea of what is happening. So if you look for another 1 year forward, right? So starting Jan 2019 to April, if you were to look at it that way, and see the amount of, the wrap BTC in the space. And you could actually see, it was virtually non-existent. It was virtually non-existent in April 2019. Right, and then the existence become more and more by like July 2019, and then it goes more and more. Now it's a lot more. Let me just show you like the top 10 ERC20s, so you get an idea. The top 10 ERC20s in the sense is BNB, is the Binance Chain one. 2 is Tether USD. This is a stable currency. Okay, so I just wanted to show this to you so you understand like how much of change has actually happened that we are seeing, if you were to think about like top 10, top 10 ERC20s, how many of them are like NFTs that are getting there, right? So you already see at least 2 stable currencies, right? So you actually see USDT, which is actually tethered to $1. Then you have Uniswap. Effectively, this is the token for the DEXs I was describing, one of the most dominant DEX in that sense. The Changelink token, it is actually Oracle. If you remember from the third slide, I was describing various pieces of this ecosystem. Chainlink is one of the oracles. Then USD coin is again, very simply put, a stable currency. This is actually from Coinbase. So, if you want to actually get, stability against BTC, you can actually get USDC. It's backed by assets. Then, wrap Filecoin. So Filecoin is like a decentralized file storage mechanism, and they have a wrap Filecoin. Wrap BTC, I was kind of showing you how much wrap BTC was, and I was telling you in April 2019 it was virtually non-existent, right? And I told you how much it was when it was April 2020, right? And it's April 2021, and look at the market cap. The market cap is 8 billion, almost 8.5 billion. Okay, so this is how things are, right? The world that was there 10 months ago is not the world that it is right now. If you look at the crypto world in every slice of the world you can think of, DeFi has actually made its mark. And one of the key things that I should say that actually allowed or a lot of this to happen, I would say 2 or 3 things. One would be stablecoins. And I will kind of talk about stablecoins a bit so you kind of understand what it is. So typically speaking, remember I was talking about the coffee or tea problem, right? I go to a shop, I buy tea, and I ask the question, how much does it cost? And by the time the tea is prepared, the price has changed. So you want to have stability. How do you actually stabilize this? So one of the ways to stabilize it is like you can actually do collateralization. So, it could be asset-backed, it could be gold, other things. So then the crypto collateral, what effectively means is like you can actually have a crypto at the back end of it, right? And then there are algorithmic ones, okay? So algorithmic ones is like you buy and sell in such a way that it kind of stabilizes. So essentially what this means is like, if you get one of these, say for example, the next one is Tether, right? So Tether actually is a stable coin, and apparently it has some assets at the back of it. It's somewhat controversial. So this is Wikipedia page. So you can't hold me responsible for this. It's there. I am just telling you as what it says. So it's been there for a while, reasonably stable, but there'll be slight variations. It's backed by a bunch of loans to different places. And there is a paper that's kind of interesting if you're really interested to understand what's going on there. John Griffin and Amin Shams, is Bitcoin really untethered? And this is like kind of saying there's a small possibility that Tether could be used to actually manipulate the price of Bitcoin. Okay, so it happens both ways. So I'm just telling you this so that you get a bigger picture. So the world of crypto is kind of big. You have major cryptocurrencies. The major cryptocurrencies include BTC, Ethereum, Ripple, Cardano, Binance, all of them, right? And then what happens is like you have a bunch of stable currencies, right? I already described USDC and USDT. So that's kind of the big ones, right? And this is kind of where we are. So this actually allows you to do transaction with other protocols. And it'll make a lot more context when I actually start talking to you about a series of protocols I have summarized for you. So that'll give you like a quick summary of what it is. So that's one. The number one piece is the stablecoin. Number two is DEXs, right? Decentralized exchanges. I told you already, it allows people to transact between themselves. And, I would say like these two kind of really changed the game. That's how it's being played. So of the DeFi protocols, I made a list of like 4 of them. And like, I think this is kind of a more interesting protocol to that. Okay, different people might have different opinion. This is my opinion. It is what it's worth. So, this particular protocol was actually started by Michael. Michael had a previous company called ZeroDB. And I happen to be an advisor, and I still have questions for him about where's my share. So he wrote a white paper called StableSwap, and then it became a pretty interesting protocol. Why did it get really interesting? Okay, it actually has this ability to do automated market making and actually do exchange liquidity pools, right? So what it allows you to do is actually trade between stablecoin and between other protocols. Okay, so if you have a stablecoin, essentially what the stablecoin means, remember the coffee conversation. If I have stablecoin, then my value of BTC doesn't change, or my value of currency doesn't change. So effectively, what will be is like if I ask the person what's the price of coffee, say 2 USDT, which is equivalent to $2. then I can give 2 USDT, 5 minutes later, 5 minutes earlier, maybe a very tiny variation, but more or less remains the same. So this protocol actually allows you to transact between different protocols with stable currencies. Okay. So, people typically interact with them using a web UI. I mean, I should have taken a screenshot. If you go to curve.finance, and if you have a MetaMask wallet in there, you can connect, and it's not the most nicest of UIs, but it will help you do what you want to do. And next is a protocol that I think is interesting for many reasons. One of the reasons I kind of say is interesting is it was created by somebody for his or her own personal use and became a big thing and grew beyond what he or she thought it would be. So Andrew Kone is the guy who actually created this. What happened is he wanted to create an automated, mechanism to actually get the highest yield possible for whatever his asset allocation was on a continuous basis. And previous to this, he actually used to work on a couple of protocols. He's been around for a while, and he released it. And what happened is, once it was released, there was a massive uptake, right? And it literally resulted in a very, very, very big pool of people using it. And the allocation that was there, even though he was the creator of it, he only ended up having a very tiny one. And then they actually had a vote. And then, this is one of the things that you recognize about DeFi protocols. DeFi protocols normally have governance structure. This governance structure is very much tied to DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. So what this does is it literally allows holders of the tokens to jointly what is the right thing to do. And this is a common theme that you will see going all through. Okay. Then Compound. Remember, I was saying that we will talk about Compound, slightly earlier when I was looking at the big protocols and big values stuck in there. So again, started early on, 2017. Robert Lushner and Jeff Hayes. It's a lending protocol. Along with Aave, it actually has a massive amount of volume in there. I think the thing to recognize is all these protocols are interesting. They do specific things. Connecting to them is pretty trivial. You go to the web page or of the URL, you have your MetaMask, you have your stable currencies in your wallet, and then you connect yourself, and then you can actually do whatever you need to do. So let me just give you some sense of an idea about what market making is, right? So I kind of said to you, in decentralized exchanges, you have market making. So what typically means is this is the price of BTC, I think, from probably 2+ years ago, 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, right? Now it's 50,000 plus, right? 50 and 60,000. So effectively what happens is when you want to sell something and when you want to buy something, the sellers actually list what price they want to sell, and the buyers kind of list what they want to buy. And there's a gap between the two, right? And somebody needs to actually, close the gap. This is actually called market making, right? So this is slippage happens, and then you want to actually close the gap. So this in an automated mechanism is called automated market maker. And the kind of automated market making that you typically see in DEXs are called constant function market making. I'm going to describe this. Ignore this graph, but I just want to give you an idea of how it works. So I'm just going to use a bonding curve to describe how constant function market making works for, say, Uniswap. Let's say Uniswap 1 and Uniswap 2. Uniswap 3 has slight changes, but for the time being, let's assume it works the same, right? So what a constant function market making means is you have Ethereum and there's some token. The total value of Ethereum multiplier of value of token and Ethereum will be a constant. So if one of them goes up, the other one needs to go in the opposite direction. And what happens is the smart contract will sell or buy to make sure this function remains the same. Okay, this is what it means. And this actually allows you to find efficient prices on a decentralized exchange. If you're really curious, I would really recommend that get hold of this book. It's a pretty good book in that sense. It gives you a reasonably good idea. It's called How to DeFi. I think maybe the second edition might be there. I looked at it probably more than a year ago. I found it interesting. And as somebody who has been involved in building such protocols, to me, it was a level where you can look at something and try to understand it. But if you really want to understand, I think what you should do is you definitely should either go into the Discord channels of these protocols and listen to people who are talking, or you should actually try read the documentation. So that is a much more rigorous source of truth. A lot of the marketing material, even though it's useful, but might not tell you the real. So I did try a bit to actually help people understand DeFi, and I recorded this. I think it's almost done. It's still, I think, one or two is missing. It's called Decoding DeFi. It's free. You can have a look and make whatever good use of the lectures that are there. Okay. Thank you all very much, and that's it.